We just spent $1 million on an investment property of 3 apartment buildings, and we're doing it with 0 of our own money. Let me show you how. What is up, YouTube? It's Taylor here, and I'm here to share with you all of the details about our recent purchase. I know I've been talking about it for the last year because it has been an entire year's process of getting these details ironed out. Now, you might be thinking about trying to get into real estate. You might be thinking about, well, how do I do that? The bank wouldn't approve me for $1 million. You know, all these different things. And although those things may or may not be true, what is more true is that there are ways to make it happen. There are ways to get around that. And that is exactly what we have done over the last year of trying to get this deal done. So with that, like I said, it's $1 million for 3 buildings. There's 2 buildings that have 3 units and the 1 building has 2 units. So basically what I want to do in this video is share with you the numbers, give you the breakdown of things, and just give you an overall feel for what it is our strategy is for these buildings. Now, I will say that this whole deal was done because of relationships that I have had and that I have built up over the last few years with running my business and them being a client of mine and them just already having this trust built in of who I am as a person, who my husband is as a person. And so I don't want you to think that you could just go tomorrow. Well, actually, maybe you could, but you can't just go tomorrow and do this deal, right? It has to be built with relationships and rapport building and just being a trustworthy person. Now, I know you probably are a trustworthy person, but if you think of it from the other person's perspective or the other people's perspective, there has to be some level of trust with that. And that's exactly what I did over the course of these last few years. I've probably known the owner for like 4 or 5 years. So keep that in mind that yes, you can do things very quickly in real estate. Yes, you can be creative, but a lot of times these things are built on relationships. Okay, so when I'm talking about these buildings, I just want you to keep in mind that yes, they're being owned by the previous owner in a contract for deed type of situation. So we're technically now the owners and the previous owner is now the bank. So when you think of it in terms of a mortgage, instead of paying that to a bank or a credit union or a big conglomerate, we're actually paying that to the previous owner. Now, the way that we're able to do that is because he previously owned the buildings free and clear. So he did not owe anything on them. He did not have to pay off a different mortgage in order to move his money to another place. They were literally all paid off. So keep that in mind when you are listening to this experience that I'm sharing with you, is that the only is like all the stars aligned, I feel like, with this deal, because there were so many things that had to have gone correctly in order for us to do this, and they did, which is awesome. So he owns the buildings, or he owned the buildings free and clear, which led him to be able to become that bank. Now, another reason that we're able to do this is because we have a separate private investor who we did use for the down payment, which was 20%, which is $200,000. So borrowing money to use it to leverage our debt to be able to start cash flowing and paying down these debts is really what the game is all about. Now, if you know about my personal philosophy on money, is that it's a game and we are playing it for the long term. So thinking about things, like when I go through these numbers with you, you're gonna be like, okay, but like, what's the point? Because we're not cash flowing. We're not making buco bucks on a monthly basis with this building, with these buildings. And so when I'm going through these examples, I just want you to realize that it's because of another reason. It's not always because of A, B, and C. It could be because of D, and I'm gonna go through those with you in this video. So with that being said, the gross rents on this property, on these 3 buildings, is $9,500. So $9,500 in rents. It is fully rented. It has never had an issue of not being fully rented. It's also being professionally managed, which is another huge positive on my perspective, is that I don't have to worry about the day-to-day stuff. I don't have to worry about someone calling because the washer is broken or because they got locked out or because their toilet is overflowing, like whatever, right? That is one of the reasons why I enjoy real estate investing, is because I don't have to do those things. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not willing to do those things. I'm not saying that I don't think it's important for you to know how to do those things. I just know that with the value of my time and the other things that I'm involved with, it makes more sense for me to focus on other income generating activities versus stopping what I'm doing for 3 hours to go and help get somebody's, get somebody's door unlocked, whatever it might be. Okay. So in my book, it's a positive. It is also an expense. So we pay a 7% management fee to the people who manage those properties. And again, in my opinion, I'm going to happily pay that. And because they're taking care of that, right? That 7% is a peace of mind from our perspective. So $9,500 in gross rents. We pay that 7%, which is $665 on a monthly basis for them to manage those buildings. That means that they collect the rents. That means that they remind people of when their rent is due. That means that they take and handle all those questions. So for me, 7% is awesome. The next bill that we pay is a $1,333 payment as well to the private money investor. Now that check is sent every single month. It's an 8% interest on that total note. And then the last thing that I have here for taking off of the gross rents is a $6,000 payment to the previous owner, which again, that's going to be that 8% interest. Now you might be thinking, wow, that's really, really high. And although I agree with you that it is high, it's also not significantly higher than where the rates are at right now. Right now, they're anywhere between like 6 and 7% for commercial side of things. And so we're paying a little bit more, but we're also getting significantly more out of the deal. And what I mean by that is if we were to go to a bank right now and say, hey, I want to borrow $1 million, they're going to require significantly more amount of things to prove that we are credit worthy, that we are able to pay those back, that we are, all these things, right? And all of these things that we are doing right now have a personal guarantee on them. So it's not like I'm saying we're just willy-nilly borrowing this money. Like that's obviously not the case. But with banks, there's significantly more loopholes that you have to jump through, especially when you're investing in a larger property, especially when we don't have 30 other buildings under our belt, right? We're not really that experienced yet. And so from a bank's perspective, it would be risky to invest and borrow us money. So because of this, we are willing to pay a little bit more on the interest side of things because we're paying for that convenience. We're paying for the ability to borrow that money to be able to build wealth in a long-term situation. Okay, so we've got the $9,500 minus $665 minus $1,333 minus $6,000. So we're left with $1,502 on a monthly basis for the net amount. Now, what comes out of that $1,500 varies on a month-to-month basis, but for sure we've got insurance, we've got maintenance, we've got snow removal, which this year has been we've been blasted in the Midwest. So it is important to keep that in mind, that is a really big expense, regardless of if you're in the Midwest, maybe you live in, somewhere where you have specific pests you have to control, or your lawn care is really crazy strict, or whatever it might be, right? There's always going to be those variables. So with those taken out of the equation, we're left at maybe like $100 cash flow every single month. So again, we did not do all of this work and go through all of this rigmarole to make $100 a month. We're in it to have the ability to own these properties over the course of time. And so that is something to think about, is that we were willing to give up that cash flow on a monthly basis to just simply have our foot in the door with these properties. Have our foot in the door with these different parties of people that are willing to invest in us and with us, because this is really the starting point of something incredible. And this is the starting point of something incredible, right? When you look at things from a different perspective of, now I don't necessarily need to have all of these specific things set up, because you can get creative. And that's exactly what we are doing. Michael and I have really, we've always wanted to get involved in real estate, right? And if you've followed any part of our journey, you know that we have worked hard over the last year and a half, 2 years, to get into some of these properties and do things a little bit differently than traditional thinking, right? So anyway, we're definitely adding to our portfolio by buying these properties, and I'm just so excited that we're able to do that. So I want to just share with you our perspective on those things, and why would we buy a building that we're not getting any cash flow on, or maybe we're getting like $100 cash flow on every single month, right? So we're getting these so that we can get into the buildings, right? So that in 10 years from now, the gross rents are maybe $15,000 per month, and now we're cash flowing $6,000 per month. Whatever it might be, right? It's the fact that these buildings are in the most pristine and incredible location in our community, is another huge reason why this is such an awesome opportunity for us. It's literally it is literally like the best case scenario for where something could be located at in our area. So it's right next to a very large university, a very large college area, and it's right in the middle of all of these very busy streets. So it's perfect for future thinking of, hey, maybe we take these buildings down and we build something that has commercial and residential side of it with that specific land that we now have, right? Maybe it's down the road of, again, what am I trying to say? Renovating. Oh boy. We're able to renovate these properties to make them be significantly better than what they are right now. And so there's always this potential, right, of having something else that could be figured out later and made into something more. So I love thinking about making something out of nothing. And this is the exact example of that, of we don't necessarily have dollars into it. We have time, energy, and efforts into it, but to create something out of nothing is pretty amazing. So I'm very excited about this property. Like I said, all of these things, like the stars definitely had to align, because we need to know the people, we need to ask the right questions, we need to know what we're gonna need to do to get it done, right? We had a lot of back and forth conversation about the actual contract of what that would look like, right? How long we would do it, what the interest rate would be, you know, all these little things. And then on the other side of it too is those other investors that are working with us, they also had to figure out their next step, right? So it's not just us that's being taken a look at very closely, it's also their tax liability. What happens when you spend $1 million and you get $1 million for one property, right? What happens when you loan someone 200 grand? What happens to your tax liability, right? So there's a lot of things that were just moving parts. And so now that we're on the other side of it, we closed a few weeks ago, we're honestly on the part of the autopilot type of thing, right? So now we're gonna continually collect rents. We're gonna pay out the first note, the mortgage that we owe to the previous owner, and then the second note, which is the private money lender that we're using, and just continually do that on a month-to-month basis. So yes, it's not glamorous, and that's good. We like that. Boring businesses do very well. So I'm excited to get into that part of it, because now we've gotten through, ironed out all those things. We met with the property manager, we went through expectations, you know, all these things that are really important. So anyways, I appreciate you watching. If you have any questions, please drop them below, because I'd love to hear what you're thinking and what questions you have. And if you haven't yet, please consider subscribing, and we will see you on the next video very soon. Bye.